Hey everybody, how's it going? So I thought I would read you all a very depressing article. For any of you who've had a dream of owning a home during your lifetime, let's just kind of share in the depression of this together. So I'm kind of at that stage in my life where I would like to be able to buy a home rather than rent. There's this kind of feeling of security you get when you have a place that you own that nobody can take away from you. That it helps cement you, I think, for the rest of your life. When you know that at the very least there's this one thing that is your largest expense in life or largest worry, which is rent or living indoors, and it can't be taken away from you. And it's just kind of sad that after years of kind of like saving up so that I'd be able to get a place someday into the future, that the year where I think, okay, now's the time to do it, is also the year of all of this horseshit. So it says here, a housing frenzy is sparking bidding wars from New York to Shenzhen. Global property prices are rising at the fastest rate since before the financial crisis. Around the world, property markets are going bananas. From the US to the UK to China, housing is riding an extended boom. Global valuations are soaring at the fastest pace since 2006, according to Knight Frank, with annual price increases in double digits. Frothy markets are flashing the kind of bubble warnings that haven't been seen since the run-up to the financial crisis. On the ground, outrageous stories are rife, with desperate buyers promising to name their firstborn after sellers. So this is from the CEO of Redfin. For example, a Maryland home buyer working with Redfin included in her written offer a pledge to name her firstborn child after the seller, and she still lost. The drivers for the frenzy are remarkably consistent. Cheap mortgages, a post-pandemic desire for more space, newly remote workers taking city cash to regional locations, and crucially, a pervasive fear that if you don't buy now, you may never be able to. So this is an interesting one. So you have the lower interest rates as a result of interest rates plummeting after COVID, the desire that people have to not be potentially around other people that have COVID and actually have space, the maybe people that want to be in the less urban locations where there are fewer pandemic-related restrictions, people being able to work from anywhere, meaning they don't really want to spend $3,000 for a shoebox anymore. And above all, the idea that if you don't buy now, you may... It's really interesting. Pervasive fear that if you don't buy now, you may never be able to. But that's the very thing that's causing prices to go up. So people actually would be able to buy at a price that's affordable if everybody weren't all fleeing at the exact same time. As prices mount, so do the risks for both individuals and society. Even without an outright crash, big mortgages mean borrowers are vulnerable if interest rates rise, have less disposable income to spend in the wider economy, and are more likely to retire in debt. For younger people, buying property becomes increasingly difficult, further widening intergenerational inequality. I think there's something here. A lot of people talk about income inequality, and I think intergenerational inequality is the one that people notice more than anything else. It's not my neighbor makes $20,000 more than me, my neighbor makes $100,000 more than me. It's my dad bought a house for $50,000, and if I want to buy something similar, it's $800,000. I think that's what people notice, and I think people would care less about their neighbor making $100,000 more than them if it wasn't for the fact that like their parents bought a house for just about 10% what they would buy the exact same house for today. That's the part that I think gets people. While regulators are starting to get nervous, there are few signs of meaningful action in most countries. They expect the market will start to cool on its own, arguing that a decade-long focus on higher lending standards combined with the prospect of low interest rates for an extended period means there is no obvious trigger for a crash. No obvious trigger for a crash. Yeah, keep telling yourself that. Much of the activity is also being driven by owner-occupiers rather than investors, who typically don't all head for the door at once if prices start to drop. So for now, expect the wild stories to keep coming. Here are a few of the most startling ones we've come across. Canada, or Canada. If America is for Americans, then how is it Canadians are not from Canada? Canada. As a real estate agent, Kristen Cripps knew the market was hot in Barrie. Prices in the fast-growing city about an hour and a half's drive north of Toronto have been pushed skyward as buyers hunt for larger homes or vacation properties on scenic Lake Simcoe. Yet, nothing prepared her for selling her one-bedroom vacation home. It's not a remarkable property. Cripps says it looks like a small box from the outside, but within 24 hours of its listing, 192 showings had been booked, and that was only the start. So it's a small box, yet 192 showings were booked within a day. Throughout the following 3 days, bidders and agents kept showing up without an appointment, trampling through the snow to bang on the door while Cripps conducted virtual viewings inside. The property's narrow driveway became so congested, no fewer than 6 cars ended up in a ditch and needed to be towed out. At the height of the bidding war, Cripps estimates she was getting about 75 emails every 20 minutes and didn't sleep more than 2 or 3 hours a night as she tried to keep up with all the inquiries. In the end, she received 71 offers. The property, listed for Canadian 399,000 Canadian dollars, sold for almost twice that sum, $777,777. So it sold for almost twice what it was listed for. And it was, as she describes it, a box. You know when you see videos of Black Friday and everyone rushes in and they're grabbing stuff and they're having fights in the store and pulling people's hair and there's security and they're grabbing people? That's what it felt like, Cripps said. Everyone was just so hot and bothered to get a property. Australia. It didn't have a kitchen or toilet or power, let alone flooring or paint. Yet the semi-derelict home about 7 kilometers south of Sydney's city centre sold anyway for 3.5 million American dollars after a heated bidding war. You must be kidding me. Okay, this actually looks kind of nice. This looks nice. Oh God, never mind. Jesus. Okay. Oh, what the? Is that a wall or just a giant hole? How the? Are you kidding? No. This is not even a picture of the house. They're selling you based on like a picture of some event space away from it. This isn't. You're not buying a lake or the palm tree. Oh my God, these are such salesmen. Wow. And oh my, $4 million for this. I'm sure this has something to do with Paul Daniels. It's just one more jaw-dropping sale in the Harborside city, where more than half of the houses sold this year fetched at least $1 million, and quarterly gains to May were the highest in more than 30 years. House prices rose by Australian $1,263 a day in May, while Australia's housing market just wrapped up its best fiscal year since 2004, figures showed Thursday. I've been involved in this industry for 25 years and see nothing like it, selling agent Joe Recep of NG Farah Real Estate said. We had 30,000 inquiries on the property in 4 weeks, from the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, America, New Zealand, and all the Asian countries. It's the top end of the market that's really motoring. Cashed-up buyers returning from overseas and wealthy locals kept in the country by Australia's closed borders are prepared to pay eye-watering amounts for a desirable lifestyle. Deanne Lewis, a principal at real estate agency Ling Plus Simmons in the Tony eastern suburb of Double Bay, sold homes worth a record $60 million in a single day in May, more than she had ever previously sold in a month. Among the 5 houses Lewis sold in her banner day was an 8-bedroom, 9-bathroom property in Bellevue Hill, an expensive area in the city's east. It was snapped up pre-auction for $25 million, almost 40% above its asking advertised price, and more than triple the $7 million it sold for just 5 years ago. While palatial, it doesn't have the waterfront views or access you'd normally expect at Sydney at that price. It's crazy, but it does make sense when you think about it, says Lewis. Being locked down in a place like Sydney does not feel so dismal when you compare it to the rest of the world. People are looking for a safe haven. So triple. So in 5 years, the amount that property sold for tripled. So let's say you had a house that was $300,000, and you were saving up money to buy that house, and then 5 years later, it's worth $900,000. You could actually be making $150,000 a year and still, in terms of housing costs and housing inflation, actually have a negative salary. So if you were solely saving up, if you were living with your parents and just putting all your money towards the ability to buy that house, you would actually be negative. So you could have purchased a house 5 years ago and quit your job and actually been better off than if you had a job that hadn't purchased the house, which is just absolutely insane. In the wealthy enclave of Greenwich, Connecticut, you can't even bank on being able to see a property before you put in an offer. Shut out of appointments to view a just-listed $1.55 million house, one set of homebuyers decided to make a cash offer above asking price anyway. Their only condition was to be allowed into the house once before signing the contract. So this is insane. There are people that are saying, okay, all we want when we buy this house is we just want to be able to look at it before signing a contract. There's no way in hell I would ever even remotely consider signing a contract or put $1 dime down on a house without being able to inspect the interior. And the idea that you can sell a house nowadays without having someone inspect the inside before you pay for it is just mind-boggling and insane to me, and the sign of a frothy market and a bubble that is not sustainable. People making purchases for $700,000 for assets that will be the most valuable asset they have throughout the course of their life, that they will be living in, who are willing to put that money down before they actually see the house. The fact that this is even something common enough that they are stipulating in the contract, we just want to be able to see it once before we go inside. The fact that that even needs to be said is insane. That's not sustainable. Because once people start buying homes and they're just sitting in their house and it just starts to fall apart because they did not actually see the house before they bought it, this is all going to stop. It was accepted as the highest and best bid, and they'd never been in the house, said Mark Pruner, a broker with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services in Greenwich. They'd never been in the house. So not only did they put in an offer over the asking price, they did that for a house that they didn't see. There were all these other people lined up for appointments in 15-minute intervals for 2 days. U.S. home prices jumped the most in 30 years in April, with even more dramatic increases in many suburban and rural areas. At the peak of the pandemic, Greenwich attracted exiles from New York City, and they've kept coming ever since. Signed contracts for single-family homes more than tripled in May from a year earlier to 165, according to appraiser Miller Samuel Inc., and brokerage Douglas Elliman Real Estate. And that's after a first quarter when the median price of home sales surged 31% to $2.24 million. In Manhattan, sales have picked up in recent months too, but that's largely thanks to the prospect of discounted prices. What they call discount is probably going to make you all scream. By contrast, buyers pushing deep into the outer boroughs in search of more spacious homes are facing bidding wars. Things are even hotter in more remote areas of the U.S. Take Boise, Idaho, a picturesque city of roughly 225,000 set against the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. An influx of buyers from California and other more expensive states has sent the market wild. Prices at the start of June were up 42% from a year earlier, according to brokerage Redfin. In April, 8 in 10 offers made by its customers faced bidding wars. Desperate buyers are doing whatever they can to secure a deal, including promising to not actually move in. Shauna Pendleton, a local Redfin broker, said one vendor negotiated the right to stay in the property for 5 months on a peppercorn rent until their new home was built. So you buy a house for an inflated rate, you pay $50,000 over the cash asking price, and then you don't actually get to move into a house that you're the only occupant of. Sellers know they've got power in this market, they know they hold the cards, and that they pretty much make the rules, Pendleton said. Buying a UK property right now is nerve-jangling. Almost a quarter of homes sell within a week, according to estate agents Hamptons International, many before they even hit the property portals. The intense competition is leaving would-be buyers like Allison Nash, 63, and her husband out in the cold. They sold their family farmhouse last year and moved into rented accommodation so they could hunt commitment-free for a property near Guildford, a commuter hub in England's southeast. 8 months later, after making offers for 3 homes at their asking prices of at least £2.5 million, they're still no closer. I have never in my life anticipated it being this difficult, Nash said. There's very little on the market, and what there is being chased down by too many people. The booming market has led to the resurgence of a practice known as gazumping. Property deals in the UK aren't legally binding until contracts are formally exchanged, which can take months after an offer has been accepted, particularly when mortgage lenders and lawyers are struggling with high volumes. At any point in this period, sellers can accept a different offer. That's what happened to Charlotte Howard, 46, in February. 4 months later, as glacial proceedings on another property left her terrified of being gazumped again, she found herself contacting the seller on Facebook to reassure them of her interest. I'm feeling just a bit broken and a bit bruised, Howard said. Things can go wrong still. Fortunately for Howard, she and the seller exchanged on June 11th. Reining in property speculation is a key objective of the Chinese government, but even they are struggling. While in much of the world a pandemic spurred a dash to the suburbs and beyond, buyers in China piled into top-tier cities where the best jobs and schools can still be found. Existing home prices in those cities rose 10.8% in the year to May, despite crackdowns on loopholes such as fake divorces, designed to bypass rules on how many properties a family can own. In the tech hub of Shenzhen, an apartment costs 43.5 times a resident's average salary, according to the research institute of real estate firm eHouse Enterprise Holdings Limited. That's not far behind Hong Kong, the world's least affordable city. I thought that was New York. When Shenzhen prices rising faster than anywhere else in China, the list of obstacles facing would-be buyers just keeps getting longer and more arbitrary. At one new home development in the city's west, interested parties had to temporarily transfer 1 million won, which is $157,000, and upload personal credit reports before they could even make a bid. Before you could make a bid, you need to give them $157,000. Suck it! Many of those who managed to do so, not easy, with queues of bidders snaking around the block at bank closing time, still didn't even get their offers considered. Under pressure from the local housing regulator to prioritize residents, local developer Costa Group decided to vet applicants on how long they'd pay taxes in the city. The 2,114 successful applications all had more than 23 years of tax records. That meant renewed disappointment for many, including Jerry Wang, 29, who has 14 years of Shenzhen tax history. It's the third time that non-monetary requirements had prevented him from even making a bid. It looks like I have to shelve the purchase plan for a long time, Wang said. There are so many people competing, I'm not sure I have a winning chance. And it really does make me wonder. I don't know how this is going to work. Is it A, going to burst within the next 2 to 3 years, or B, going to continue to get worse and worse and worse and worse as this trend continues? Because, like, on one hand, I would think, well, the way to deal with this would be to just ignore it altogether and come back later once people have calmed down. But on the other hand, if inflation continues at this rate and you don't buy now, maybe, 2 or 3 years from now, that house that you have to make a $50,000 above asking price offer costs $300,000 more money. But I really don't see how this is in any way, shape, or form sustainable. And I don't see how this is going to be any good for society. It seems like you really do have that perfect storm of super low interest rates, people wanting to leave cities, people being able to work from anywhere so they don't need to stay in a city anymore, combined with the fact that people are looking for areas that maybe don't have pandemic-related restrictions or were less calm during June of last year. And this is, it really is interesting, because one of the things I mentioned a comment on a last video is someone said they feel really bad for the people that thought, I'm going to do the right thing. Instead of buying a house and only putting 3 or 5 or 10 or 15% down, I'm going to save up, be responsible, so that I have a 20 or 40% down payment on my home. And all the people that actually decided to do something that was responsible got screwed. And I don't think it's particularly good for society when you set when you show people that when they do the responsible thing, they are punished, and people who do the irresponsible thing are rewarded. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. See you all in the next video, and Mr. Clinton is over here, and he hopes that you learned something.